Hey everybody, welcome to the In All Things podcast. It's time to see God in everything. Good morning everybody, at least it's morning when we're recording this. Welcome to a brand new episode of the In All Things podcast. My name is Mitch Frost and I am here with Pastor Steve Markle. Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. How's it going?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. Are you really good? Are you sure?
I don't know. A little sore. We had a pretty rough workout this morning. Intense.
Wow.
That was good. But yesterday was a long day, but I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good Sunday?
It was a good Sunday morning at church. We had one of our best crowds since COVID and kind of coming to the end of that and end of our series yesterday. So that was good. And my son's 7th and 8th grade basketball team won the PYA championship. So That was a celebration. We had 2 basketball games in the afternoon that were tight and intense. So that was exhausting. So it was a long day.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about series wrapping up yesterday? Like you said, I know you said the crowd was good. It felt good. I was in there at 9:30 and all of that. But how did you feel about the message itself and the series as a whole? Good.
I mean, I thought the worship was great yesterday too. Jared's agreeing over there. Amen. Yeah, he was great. But I felt good about it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a fresh take for me. It's something, it wasn't like a series that I had done before and rebranded or anything like that. It was all fresh and new. And I really enjoyed this one and the wrapping it up with talking about the priority thing and how we let different things in our lives become priorities over people. And I think it hit home with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Last night we wrapped up our relationship series at the Well. So I know we've said it a couple of times, but we did a series called Equations, looking at what needs added and removed and subtracted and multiplied in our relationships. I'm tired of saying that over and over again. But yeah, last night was the last part. So we split up high school and junior high. So I preached 2 different messages, completely different messages to 7th and 8th graders and then to 9th through 12th. I gave a sex talk. So first time doing that to our students. But it was good. It went well.
Yes.
But it's always vulnerable to be on stage, you're just there and it's something that you've written and prepared. So it's like, there's a lot of pressure involved in that, but especially with a message like that, and the first time doing a message like that, you feel like all the eyes on you. And I don't feel that a lot, but it was just like, I'm kind of nervous.
The fear of public speaking is one of the greatest fears people have. And I know the subject matter changes it, and that is a tough one. I've been there, done that too, and I know what you're saying, and you just feel so exposed. But my 8th grade son said you did a great job, but he kind of was curious what the high school talk had in it. Yeah,
I told all our 7th and 8th graders, I was like, don't worry, I'm not going to be as hard on you as I was the high schoolers. If you're really curious, just go ask one of your friends what we talked about in there. So I don't know if anybody did.
You told me last night when I asked you how it went, you said it was very quiet in the room when you were talking. I think that's why, because they're nervous or they just want to hear exactly what you're going to say.
Maybe a mix of both,
Yeah.
But it was funny, and Lexi pointed this out. I don't notice as much of these things from the stage, but she said it's funny because the girls were way more comfortable than the guys. Really? and I would have guessed that for sure, but she said it was so obvious. And I'd make a joke and I'd say, okay, let's get comfortable, and I'd talk about stuff, and the girls were fine the whole time, and the guys were shifting and rubbing their hands on their legs and kind of making jokes about stuff, and they were so uncomfortable with it. But
well, even in that, there's a big difference between freshmen and sophomores and then juniors and seniors. Even when you think about those type of issues, and everybody's at a different maturity level and what they've experienced and heard in their life. So
but all in all, it was good.
Yeah, and
I think it was good.
Hats off to you for doing 2 different messages on the same night. That's kind of challenging.
We left, and I was talking to Lexi, and I was like, you know what I just realized? I was on stage talking. I think I stopped 5 minutes in between as they shifted in and out from 6:50 until 7:55. Oh. That's how long I was on stage, continuously talking the whole time. 2 different messages. Yes.
Wow.
It was a different thing for me, but no, it was good.
I'm glad you did that. What's next for the students? What's the next series?
So we start a series next week called Woke Jesus. We're gonna take some of his most popular sayings and teachings, and we're gonna invert them to be if he was woke, if it was 2022, and he was saying the things that our world wants us to hear. So we're going to take some of his famous statements, twist them a little bit, and figure out why that's wrong and why that's very anti the way that Jesus would live. So it's going to be good.
That's awesome.
I'm very excited for it. So one of my mentors who's in Tennessee, I was telling him about this idea a couple months ago, and he was like, when you design it and everything, send it to me because I'm going to use it. And I was like, hey, let's do it.
I think you can market that. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So I'm excited. It'll be fun. That starts next week. What's next for Sycamore as a whole?
As a whole, yeah. Challenge the Norm is the title of our next series. We're going to go through the book of Mark, and we're going to take 7 weeks, which is longer than normal. Most series are a month long, but this one is going to take us right up to Easter Sunday because the book of Mark ends with the story of Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. So, but we're going to look at how Jesus and his speaking and the actions that he took, how he challenged what was the cultural norm. I kind of hit on it a little bit yesterday in the way he was with relationships. But Jesus didn't care about all the man-made rules, and he was more about pleasing God and, of course, and completing his mission. And so it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good thing. And we're going to also give people a devotional guide so the whole church over 45 days can read through the book of Mark with us. So we're not going to cover every story in the book of Mark, obviously in 7 sermons, but we're going to hit the highlights, but people can really dive deep. So I love when we do a variety of series. Just did a topical one on people, relationships, and now we're going through the book of Mark. So looking forward to that.
And our Christmas one was very through the Old Testament kind of thing.
I know.
So it's just
and January was about habits. So
I think people love that. I think the variation and the different types of things.
We like to shake that up, and every year we look at the preaching calendar, and we try to map that out to have balance. And I know some people love you should just preach the Bible verse by verse every single week. That's what you should do.
And that works for some churches.
Yeah, and that's fine. I have no criticism of that. But when I look at the way Jesus taught, I think he had a variety of styles in the way he taught. And so I think it's good to have a variety and go through books of the Bible, through topics, through doctrines, through character studies. I love those too. So anyway, yeah. And
Good
then
stuff.
So this week we start that, and I think week 2 of the series you're gonna.
You think?
I think
Just depends
I
on how
do.
I'm
I
doing?
know.
Oh,
I know.
okay.
Well, you know what? You're gonna have the second week. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Started to look at where my chunk of Mark is and kind of what can come out of that in terms of challenging the norm. So I'm excited.
Yeah,
it's been a couple months. I guess it was early December since I've preached. So it's been a while.
Break.
I'm excited. Yeah. Take a break.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're gonna come back to that whole idea of challenging the norm today. I'm gonna attempt to bridge the gap because we're kind of in this in-between week of we just finished Peopleology, the study of relationships and people, and now we're heading to the book of Mark, how Jesus kind of flipped culture on his head. So the conversation I want to have today is kind of going to be a bridge of the two, I think. We're going to talk about a very popular personality test thing that a lot of people are into, especially a lot of churches are into, and then we're going to look at how maybe challenge the norm of that a little bit and look at the two extremes and figure out how we should really live with this personality test kind of thing. So I'm excited.
Sure.
But before we get there, I do want to take a couple minutes to address the situation going on in our world. And so what I don't want to do, and I think you would agree, I've listened to a couple different podcasts in the last couple of weeks of people, church context, talking about this, and they're a little bit sounding too educated, or they think they're more educated than they are.
That's a danger.
And it comes off as like they have all the facts, they have it all together, they're going to tell you what to think, and I don't want to have any of those kind of conversations where we're just out of our depth, out of our element too much. I like pushing the limit. I like making us think. I like getting deep, but I don't want to sound like I know more than I know. I think you would agree with that.
Well, I do too. I think we want to address current events, but not become a current event talk show podcast because there's plenty of those out there, and that's not what we're about. But I don't think we can ignore something like this going on in the world like this. And for me, the biggest thing about this whole invasion of Ukraine by Russia is what is this about? And because usually, when there's a war, this is the reason why.
Right.
And all I can find is this really that Putin just wants power, just wants the land back that they had before. And he's just evil.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask. Is let's say that I was somebody who was listening to the In All Things podcast. Right. I've been ignoring the news. I didn't know something was going on.
Wow.
That's the life that I live. But the In All Things podcast is my source of what's going on in the world. That's a
scary thing.
But let's say that person was there. Could you sum up kind of what's happening in our world for them? Really basic 30,000 foot view on what's happening.
So Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet Union, as were many of these independent countries now. And, back in the Cold War, they broke away. And now that Putin I don't know what's happening with him. I mean, he's kind of feels emboldened to go and take back the Ukraine, like as part of their land. And so he is just invading this country, and he's, at the Capitol with the troops, and it's not going as well as he hoped. So he's frustrated, which is great. And the crazy thing is, like, the entire world is almost, not everybody, but almost every country in the world is with the Ukraine on this, as are we in the United States. They're an ally. And so it's just today, this is Monday, and by Thursday, by the time this is out, who knows? But there's a meeting taking place between Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, with Putin and his people, and they're going to talk. But it doesn't seem like, from a point of view that we're looking at it, like one is going to be like, you surrender, and the other one's going to be like, you get out. Like, how's that going to work? And so I don't know, like the fear that I think a lot of people have is, could this escalate into World War III? But now that I see, Russia isn't as strong. They're strong, but they're not doing as well as they thought they would do. And there's a lot of talk that Putin is very frustrated because he thought by now he'd have control. So that's a good thing. But the whole thing, the thing that saddens us, and like you said yesterday in the welcome in your prayer, is that it saddens the heart of God to see innocent people being killed for no real good reason. This is not a war that you can say, well, this is validated because of this. No, this is just an awful power grab.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that some of the crazy things that I've seen is, like, now all the footage and media is coming out and at the streets of Russia, and how people are protesting this and, like, begging Putin and the government to stop. And it's just like, it's crazy when you see something like that happen, where the people of the country are like, we don't want this. No. Like, and that's just, it makes
soldiers,
you think.
even soldiers, they're like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Like, that's unbelievable. I don't know he's always been a wild card, but for some reason he is acting out in a way right now that is very scary for the world. So hopefully we can see this come to an end peacefully soon, and not be something that drags on. You know how these things go. They usually don't end quickly. So I think it's just something that, as the church, we need to be praying for all the Ukrainian people. There's a lot of Christians in Ukraine. There's a lot of people. I've been amazed at all the people that I know that know people there, right?
Yep.
It's like, it is and the president there is just, just seems like an awesome president. Like, he's really standing up for his country. He's strong, and it's pretty impressive what he's doing.
Yeah. But hey, we don't, like I said, we don't know all the details. We don't know all the facts. We don't know what it's like to be in a situation like that. I'm so thankful that we don't know what it's like to be in a situation like that. But we do know that it's heartbreaking to watch, and it's very
well. I've heard stories from my grandmother about when we were being attacked years ago, and they had drills when they were young about how to, if something were happening, how to get under your desk at school, and the blackouts where you'd turn all the lights off in your home and all your electricity so that you couldn't be spotted from the air. And then there's stuff like that are, other older generations understand, but we don't. I don't, you don't understand what that would be like.
Yeah.
So,
it's one of those harder situations to look at the theme of our podcast and the question that we ask often, and say, how can God be seen in all things? It's one of those things that challenges us, because it's like that that's unfortunate to watch. And so how would you answer something like that? How can God be seen in a situation like this?
God works in all things for the good of those who love him, is the scripture that our podcast is based upon. So, and the people that are there that are going through this fearful time, that put their trust in God, and you can see God working in ways. You can see people stepping up to help other people. Like we've talked about before, and these type of things. But it's always a reminder that there's evil and there's sin in this world, and it goes all the way back to when sin entered the world. And there's always going to be evil people that do evil things, and God doesn't control us all and make us all do the right thing. And there's going to be evil, and as long as there's evil, there's going to be people that are hurt. And the way I think that we see God is in all things, we can do the right thing, and people can step up and love and encourage and shelter people. And countries like, I think Poland is taking in hundreds of thousands of people, refugees, to help to until this thing is over.
Yeah,
it's we just got to keep them in prayer.
Yeah. Well, speaking of prayer, if you wouldn't mind, I would love to open this podcast episode just praying for the situation, praying for the people of Ukraine, and then we will move on with our conversation.
Okay, sure, let's do that. So, Lord, I thank you for being a God who sees all things and knows all things. And Lord, sometimes we don't understand why things like this are happening in our world. But God, we just come to you today, and we just, again, proclaim our trust in you. And God, we're asking you for those people that are suffering right now, that are going through pain and hurt, being broken from their families and wondering if they'll see their loved ones again. God, I pray that you would be seen, and that there would be people that are sharing Jesus with those people that are going through that. And Lord, I just pray that this crisis would come to an end very quickly, and that we would see minimal loss of life. And Lord, I just commit this to you. Help us here in our country to always be mindful of what other people are going through and how they're suffering, and to do all that we can. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So let's transition. Let's shift gears.
Okay.
Really hard shift of gears here, but
all right.
let's begin talking about challenging the norm of personality types. Okay, that's kind of the working theme that we're going with today as we bridge the gap between the two series. I already said that.
Yeah.
So, what personality types have you taken, like tests, or what were the fads that you can remember growing up of like the popular personality tests and things like that?
Yeah, two that come to my mind. One was the Myers-Briggs, which was big when I was going through church planting when I was like 29, 30 years old, getting tests to see what our personality types were. That was a big thing to see how you matched up and what your spouse was and how that would work. I know that I was an E, not an I.
I don't remember mine, actually.
You're an E, an extrovert, obviously. I know that. A lot of pastors are, but not all pastors are E's. But I don't even remember. ESTJ was what I am. I don't remember what they all stand for. But that was a big one. There was the one where you're either a beaver, a golden retriever. What is that one?
Oh, people in the booth.
You remember
We're going to use you. Do you guys remember what that personality type test was called, or what it was for?
What was it? Golden retriever,
there was a
beaver,
a lion, right?
Yeah.
And a beaver. And I remember the golden retriever.
And what was the other one?
There's some type of animal test here.
Yeah, do you remember that?
I do. I don't remember what I am or what it's even called, but I remember taking it at one point in college. They're coming up blank here. So
that was big.
But
anyway.
There's been a bunch of them. The one time we tried to use you guys in the booth, you don't have an answer. So we're not going to use you again.
There's one called a DISC test,
Oh,
but I don't know, DISC. I didn't do that one, but that was a big one. So what about you? Is there others besides those? Besides the one we're gonna
talk about, I remember hearing about those ones, and oh wait, they're gonna speak to us.
Okay.
Here we go.
Well, what we could find here, it's called the 4 Animals Personality
Assessment. Wow. Okay.
We
could have
lion,
guessed that.
Beaver, otter, and a golden retriever.
Okay.
The otter was the one.
Gotcha.
It isn't like a real name.
Is there like any write-ups of what those are or anything like that? Like
yes,
little ones?
Lion describes a powerful in a person who's driven towards objectives. I mean, there's a description for each one of them.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah. Okay.
I remember being
Yeah, I remember taking that one once.
Yeah.
But the one that we're going to talk about, I would say, has been the biggest for maybe my generation, the biggest one that we've bought into, all my friends and stuff like that. So
was it last 5 years?
Yeah, probably last 5 years. It's gotten really big.
Yeah.
But it's been around for a long time. So we're going to talk about the Enneagram today.
Okay.
For those of you who are like, oh, what is it? I'm sure you could have guessed. For those of you who heard of it before. Some of you have not.
Right.
So we're going to explain it a little bit, get into it a little bit, break it down, and then we're going to talk about the extremes on either side. Okay. This is like the most map of a conversation I've ever given you.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the extremes on either side of the Enneagram, and then we're going to talk about the dangers of living on either side of a personality test. Okay.
And let me just say, too, that you told me that map of what we're going to do. You kind of gave me an idea. I have done no extra research to prepare for this.
Okay.
All I know is that I did the test once and I know what number I am.
What are you?
An 8.
There you go. Okay. So there are 9 types of the Enneagram.
Okay.
It's funny because people love to say, well, did you know that the Enneagram used to be based on a demonic cult and they used it? But then you read 5 other people that say, did you know that the Enneagram was actually started in one of the first churches in, I forget where, and they actually used it to understand Christianity more, and that's where it came from. So long story short, we don't know where it came from, but we know that it's been around for a
we've heard
long,
these stories
long time.
About music that we use in the church. Well, those beats came from the devil.
Play it backwards, and you're gonna hear some stuff.
And then the old hymns used to be bar tunes, and we shouldn't use the. I mean, come on, just anyway.
Fun stuff. But anyway, the long story short, we don't really know where this thing came from.
Right.
Okay, but we do know, and this is true for anything that we talk about. it only, it really matters how much you give to it. Right? Like you only really, something like a personality test, it's only going to control me or play a role in my life as much as I give myself to it.
Much as you allow it to.
Okay?
Yeah.
So for the people who are like, well.
And I don't know if you want to say this now or maybe later, but to
preface
it, just like you are who God says you are.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible should be what defines you as the primary thing that defines you. And so we're going to talk about this, but some people get way caught up in this and they let this be the defining thing in their life. Yeah. It's not that, but it is great for being able to understand people better, right? Isn't that the
absolutely.
whole point?
That is
how
the
we work
that is
together
the point.
And how our relationships flow. Yeah.
Yep. So let's get into the 9 different types of the Enneagram. Okay. And maybe for you listening, you could be like, oh, I see myself in that, or this is maybe my friend or my spouse or whoever.
And there's free assessments, right? You can
you can definitely go take a test.
What, how many, like 30, 40?
It just depends on which one
questions.
you take. But
and then
around
you answer
there.
questions, honestly, it'll tell you. Yeah. Right.
But here's where it gets interesting, and here's why so many people love the Enneagram, okay? The reason why it's so different from other personality types is one thing that it really focuses on and hits on and actually says this is how you discover your true type is your core motivations or your core fears. So, Steve, let's say that you buy us Starbucks one morning. The whole staff, you come in, you're like,
sure.
I bought everybody Starbucks today. Don't pay me back. I got it.
Right.
The best clear way for you to know your true Enneagram is the reason why you did that. Okay. So we're going to get into that in a second. But here we go. 9 different types. Type number 1 is called the reformer. Okay. It used to be called the perfectionist. It's been changed to the reformer. This is the person who is very motivated by right and wrong. Everything's very black and white to them, right? So it's you're either doing something right, you're following the rules, or you're not. Okay. Type 2 is the helper. That's what they're called. This is a people pleaser. They will do a lot of things to serve other people, even at the expense of themselves. Okay. Type 3 is the achiever. That is somebody very motivated by to-do lists and getting things done. And a lot of who they are is wrapped up in what they can produce or what they can achieve. Okay. Right. Type 4 is the individualist, is what they're called. So that's somebody who is very motivated by arts and kind of being their own person and those kind of things. They're very into creating things that are unique, and they have a unique eye for the world kind of thing. Type 5 is the investigator, somebody very motivated by logistics and figuring things out, getting to the bottom, understanding things maybe before you give yourself to it, that kind of thing. 6 is the loyalist. This is somebody who they have their group of friends. There's maybe somewhat small group of friends, and they're very loyal. Like when you're their friend, but it takes a long time to get close to them. They're very motivated by fear and worry and those kind of things. Type 7 is the enthusiast. Okay, this is the person who's like bored every 5 minutes. Like they're always on to the next thing. Very spontaneous, very looking for new things, that kind of stuff, and just motivated by that. Number 8, this is you and I believe Jared. This is the challenger, is what they're called. Very strong leaders, very opinionated, and it takes a lot to change their mind on things. And number 9 is the peacemaker. So this is the person who will do a lot of things to keep the peace, to make sure that everybody's good. They're always thinking about, is everybody kind of like calm and collected and all of that. So they're always taking care of other people. Now, that was a lot. But I want to also read the core desires and motivations and fears of each type, because this is where it gets good. Okay. So type 1, their core motivation is being good or being right. Okay. So that's the reformer. Type 2, their motivation is being loved or being wanted. Okay, so that's the people pleaser, right? That is their motivation. Type 3 is being valuable, being admired. That's the achiever, the to-do list person, the success person. Their desire is to be valuable and admired. Type 4, the individualist, is to find meaning or being uniquely themselves. Okay, so that's the person. We've already talked about that. Number 5 is being competent or being capable. So that's the investigator, looking for the details, looking for the facts. That's the reason why. Number 6 is being secure and being supported. So that's the loyalist, the one who's motivated by fear and worry. The reason why is because they want to be secure in everything that they do. Number 7 is being satisfied, being content. That's the enthusiast. Go do whatever you want. Changes every 5 minutes, right? And number 8 is being self-governed or being independent. So the challenger, the person who is very strong-willed and very strong leader, their core motivation is kind of being in charge a little bit. They want to be self-sufficient and things like that. Number 9 is being at peace and being harmonious with everybody. So that makes sense. What are your thoughts on these core motivations so far? Do you see yourself in an 8 still?
I do.
Does it make sense?
I think I have a little 9 in me too, because I like to, I think that's, you told me too that a lot of times, whatever one you're strong with, sometimes you have the one next to it can be something that is.
Yeah. In the Enneagram world, that's called your wing.
I know.
Okay. And for some of you listening, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot.
This is a lot. Maybe we can put this stuff in the notes a little bit.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah, but I think so, because I want everybody to get along and everything. I think that. And
I'm a 3.
You're a 3.
Yes, I'm a 3 with a very strong wing 2, which means I'm the achiever. I'm very to-do list. I like to get things done. I'm very success driven, but it's very rooted in pleasing people and serving people and being loved and
But you like
wanted
to be
and all
told
that.
you're valuable.
Yes, absolutely.
You've done a good job.
So, last list I'm going to read, and then
Okay.
we're going to move on. And then we're going to talk about the extremes and why this matters and how it can help us and all
Sure.
of that. We're going to read the fears of each type. And this is where you really can see yourself in some of these things, okay? So we're going to talk about the things that really scare or worry or those kind of things with each type, okay? So type number 1, their core fear is being bad or being wrong, okay? Type 2, core fear is being unloved or being unwanted. Type 3, core fear is being worthless and being a failure. Type 4 is being without significance and having no identity. Type 5 is being incompetent, being incapable. Number 6 is being without support, being without guidance. Number 7 is being deprived or being trapped, kind of locked down as their big fear. Number 8 is being controlled or being harmed. And number 9 is being separated or being at loss with others.
Okay.
Do you agree with your type?
What was number 8 again?
Being controlled or being harmed. What do you think?
I haven't really thought. I don't know that those are my biggest fears, being controlled.
Core fear. So a lot of the things that you do come back down to that. I see that in you.
Do you?
I do.
Well, that's good. I guess. I don't know. Being harmed. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like just you're very motivated by safety, I guess.
Yeah.
For yourself, for your family, for whoever. So
right.
I can see
Yeah.
it. But anyway, the reason why we read all those lists and talked about all the, you can see yourself in probably one of those things. You're starting to think, oh, that could be me. But here's the other thing. There's probably a piece of you in every type. So it's not like you're going to be, I'm only this and nothing else and everybody else is crazy. Like you're probably going to see a piece of yourself everywhere, and that's okay. That's actually healthy to have a little bit of everything. So that's okay.
Absolutely. I think too, for some people that are listening to all this right now, this is a lot of information. They might want to even pause this and go do one of those tests, and then go back and listen again to what you just said, those lists, because it'll make even more because as you were listening to Mitch talk about it, you were probably thinking, oh yeah, I have that fear. Oh, well, I have that fear. I'm a little bit like that. I'm a little bit like that. And so it might even help you to enjoy this even more, this process. And I have to say, we had this discussion about this the other day. It's so much fun to talk about when you get going in these conversations, because then you start talking about, oh, my wife is this, your wife is this, and
even on staff, like we're a staff of 6, and it's like, oh, I think this person's this, and that's why they do
we
this.
have on this? If you said you think Jared and I are 8s, and you think you're a 3, what is Devi?
Devi and Christy are 2s,
and Amy's,
and I believe Amy is a 4, but I don't know. Devi, what do you think? What do you think Amy could be if she's listening? I would say she's a 4.
Yeah, well,
but the Individualist, or potentially a 9, a peacemaker. I don't know.
But
that's
anyway,
interesting.
it makes it interesting.
I
I think I'm married to a 1, and you're married to a
6.
6.
Yep.
And there's things that say these are good matchups, right? Like if you married this person, so if you're married to one that isn't, so what does that mean?
I don't know. Devi, can you find anything like that? Like any list of good matches with different types of Enneagrams and things like that?
Okay.
I'm sure it'll pop up just with a Google search. But
anyway,
it's a fun conversation, and it is interesting. I know we're throwing out, I'm a 2 and you're a 3, and people are like, okay, you're actually a person.
Well, I know, and I've heard of churches with big staffs where they're like, all the 3s hang out together and all the 9s hang out together, and we don't want to be with them because they're 4s. I'm like, that's just ridiculous. And that when you take it to that level, I think then you've lost it.
Yeah,
the point.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So once he reads us our list of good matchups, then we'll get into the extremes.
Well, type 1s commonly pair with 2s or 7s. Type 2s commonly pair with 3s or 8s. Type 3s with 9s. That's it. Type 4s with 5s or 9s. Type 5s commonly pair with 1s or 2s. Type 6 commonly pairs with 9s. Type 7s commonly pair with 9s. Wow. Everybody likes
9 is
9s.
good.
Well, they're
Type-
peacemakers, so they get along with
Type
everybody.
8 commonly pairs with 9s. And the
Okay.
9s commonly pair with 1s or 2s.
So basically, both of our marriages are in trouble now.
Big trouble
I mean,
because
boom.
it's over.
So we just did that
basically.
podcast, Sharon and I did, about our how many
Pointless.
years we've been together, and it doesn't matter
Nope,
because
doesn't
now the
matter.
Enneagram says we're a bad match. Okay.
But here's where we get into extremes because
Okay.
some people would think that. And
Right,
some people
that's-
would
yes.
begin to structure their friendships, their inner circles,
dating
their
life if
everything,
they're
their
not
dating
married,
life around the Enneagram. I listened to a podcast. I think we've listened to an episode, Driving to Liberty, with Trey Kennedy, he's a Christian comedian. He's hilarious, and he has a podcast called Correct Opinions, where basically he roasts everything that goes on in the world, and
Right.
it's awesome. But he does a lot about the Enneagram. He hates it, and just because of the way that people take it. And he has all these bits that he does where he's like, I'm on this dating profile, and he's like, well, this person's a 5. She's everything else checks out, and she's perfect, but she's this, so I can't. So like he makes all these jokes and
Right,
reads all
right,
these
right.
funny articles, but.
Yeah. Somehow we survived before this, but
Yeah, but now we got to reevaluate. Anyway,
that was good.
let's get into the extremes of any personality type, but we are focusing on the Enneagram today. Let's focus on the people who take it religiously. The people who, like you said, only hang out with that group or, restructure their whole lives around it. What are the dangers of doing that with a personality type like this? What do you think?
Well, I mean, you can just think about the series we just did, God Called Us to Love Everybody. And I talked about having bias toward different cultures of people yesterday, but that could be definitely something, if we take it too seriously, we could be like, well, I'm biased because I know what personality type they are. And they're just one of those rude 8s or one of those, they're a 9, they're soft. They get along with everybody. They don't have any strength.
Right.
So you can just be very critical of people because of that. And I think if you focus on the weaknesses that person has, that's a problem. And I think you can go extreme on that. And then, of course, you can, I think the extreme of using it as your excuse for how.
Oh, absolutely. We were going to get into that.
Or you on that, like the excuse for, I just,
just
I'm
the way
a jerk.
I am.
I'm
Just
a jerk
the way I
because
am.
I'm an 8. I'm a jerk,
Yeah.
like I'm to-do list driven because I'm a 3. I don't really care about anything else except
Yep.
getting my list done.
Right.
And it's like what I talked about yesterday too, like when we have agendas that rise above people. Like, no, your agenda is important, but people are more important. So I think all people are important.
Yep.
No matter what number you are, 1 through 9. Yeah.
Or what animal you are.
What animal you are,
Yep.
what letters you are.
Yep.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah. So what about the people who swing to the other side? Because you and I both know people who do this as well, where they hear about the Enneagram or they hear about a type or a test like this, and it's like, well, that's really dangerous. Like that, those people who are doing that, their churches are going to fall apart. Their world's going to fall apart. Everything that they do because of the Enneagram is ruined. They're not following the Bible anymore. They're not like, there's people who take the extreme, maybe not to that level, but there
Maybe
are
that's
people
a
who do
little extreme,
that.
but
So what do you do with that extreme when the pendulum swings to the other side? And there's people who are saying, if you buy into the Enneagram or any personality type like that, I've actually heard the argument. Oh boy, people are hilarious. I've heard the argument of, Jesus, he calls us to deny ourselves and take up our cross. So if you're taking personality types and learning more about yourself, you're actually in direct violation to what Jesus has called you to do.
Okay.
Steve, what would you say to somebody like that?
what does that even mean? Like nobody has a personality?
Nope, not allowed.
Everybody, like if we went through Bible, I was just thinking about this. I was sitting here, like Bible characters, like the different
They
personalities.
didn't have personality
No,
types.
they were all the same.
They were just robots.
They were all probably 8s because 8s is the right. So I mean, I it's just amazing to think about that type of, because I've seen it throughout different organizations and different churches, different ones. Somebody might not like the Enneagram, fine.
Sure.
If you like Myers-Briggs, do that one. But I think they're helpful for staff getting along. They're helpful for relationships. I met a pastor. I had coffee with a pastor, a friend of mine actually, and he was telling me he got trained professionally in. He's a conservative guy, and he got trained in it on how to use it to help couples. And they did a whole marriage retreat with their church based around this idea of learning how to work better with your spouse when you know each other's Enneagram. So, like, if you're using it for good, just like in all things, God can work. I mean, I just don't understand the mentality of not wanting to understand, denying yourself. What does that mean? Then you have to become some different personality. Like the whole thing, it's just, I think the people that get worried about stuff like that is when they're concerned about people using it as an excuse for sin. Maybe.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Or they're afraid of everything.
And I mean, let's be honest.
They're probably fives.
Right. But let's be honest, like our goal is to be more like Jesus,
right,
every day, right? And what Enneagram type was he? What do you think? I'm just kidding. But
what was?
But we are
Do they
trying.
know? Have they talked about that?
Somebody's probably talked about it. I don't know. Davi, what Enneagram type is Jesus? Can you find that out for us? But our goal. He's a 10.
Yeah.
Our goal is to walk and be more like him, and restructure our lives and our hearts to be like him, right? But I also think there is so much awareness and honestly health that comes from understanding who you are. I think your relationships are handled better with other people, your relationships with your staff, your relationships with your coworkers, your relationship with your family. When you understand, okay, I respond like this because I struggle with fear or I struggle with security. Like it does help. It does raise awareness in who you are so that you can better be like Jesus, because you can work against those fears or those core motivations that you have that are sinful, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's just
and knowing some of these things has helped me to fight against some of those things in my own life that are bad patterns for me.
But obviously the extreme can go to the other side where, like you said, we hear it sometimes of like, well, that's just who I am. Right. And when we don't believe in a God who just leaves you the way that you are, we don't believe in that. We believe that part of being a true Christ follower, meaning that you really understand who Jesus is and that you have the Holy Spirit, all those things, is you are actively working to be more like him every day. Does that mean you're perfect? Does that mean you're always never going to take a step back? No, but you're always trying to get to this place where you look more like Jesus, right? So God doesn't say, hey, Steve, I know you've struggled with X, Y, and Z, but now you believe in me, so everything's good. I'll see you in heaven. Keep living exactly the way that you want. That's not how it works, right?
No, not at all. Like even going back to the Myers-Briggs, I said I was an E for extrovert, and we took it. My wife is an I, more of an I for introvert, but she pushed herself because of her position as the pastor's wife to be more on that edge of an E, because it's something that is almost required of her, and she's fine with that, and she knows that, and it's not always comfortable, but relating to people isn't always about us being comfortable, because if we just do what we're comfortable with, we're going to miss out on a whole lot in this life. And you think about Jesus in his interactions with people, he didn't know their Enneagram. Maybe he did, but he did treat people differently. I mean, not treat people differently, but he interacted differently because he understood what they were about. And he talked to people in different ways, different tones.
The parables he used, he understood that the people listening would understand parables about farming or fishing or whatever he was using, right?
Yeah,
that's a part of it too.
Part of it too,
right?
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I absolutely agree. Jesus wasn't just like, hey,
cookie cutter
here's
approach.
One, like you said, robot.
I'm a 10, so this is how I do it. Yeah.
Everybody deal with it,
Yeah, right.
So it's just interesting, and there's really not. We could go on for a long time. But
I mean, these conversations are fun when you get going with it. And there's a lot of books out there, and there's people that are enthusiasts that just listen to every podcast that comes out about the Enneagram, and that's
and that's
can
fine.
Be fun.
Yeah,
but just don't do more of that than getting to know who God is through his word. And it's
absolutely.
Just the whole danger of being imbalanced in life.
Right.
You can get obsessed with things like
that's
this.
really what this conversation is.
Yeah.
Right?
We're not here to maybe help you figure yours out. You can do that. And we encourage. I mean, it's fine. If you want to do it, it's great.
And if you don't, great.
Don't.
It doesn't matter.
We're not here to promote that thing, that test or all that. But if it can make your relationships better, it can make you
more
better,
healthy and emotionally aware and all of that, then I don't see the dangers of it. Now, but yet again, anything can become too much, right? Anything you can become this new idol or this new form of religion that you have, and no personality type can ever serve you that way, right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah,
I mean, really, we got an in, we got out of the Enneagram.
Wow.
We that's it.
This will not go down as one of the best podcasts about the Enneagram.
No, because it's not the most educational.
And and we don't try to talk about things.
We're not
as
experts
if we're
on
experts
this.
No.
But it is fun and it is
fun.
enjoyable.
It is fun.
And in a couple of years when the new personality type test shows up and everybody's talking about it, it's good to have these things in place of saying, okay, maybe I will take it. Maybe I will get into it. Maybe I will talk about it because it's fun. But also at the same time, it's not going to make me who I am. It's not going to be my identity.
Yes.
The truth is that if you are a believer in Jesus, then your identity, the only identity that matters, is that you're a son or a daughter of God.
You're a child
That's
of
it.
God. That's what.
And you've been redeemed. You've been made right in His eyes through the blood of Jesus. That's your identity. Everything else that maybe helps you love other people people better, serve other people better. That's great. That's all, maybe icing on the cake. But what really matters at the core of it all is your identity, regardless of personality type, regardless of what animal you are, regardless of what number you are, is you're a child of God if you believe in him. And that's where everything else should stem from.
The beauty of what God created in all of us is that we're all different in our personalities. And that's a beautiful thing. Imagine how boring it would be if we were all the same.
Right.
So I love it.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I think that, I'm very excited for this new series that we're about to start. I don't know about you, but I can't wait to, one of my favorite things to talk about, especially with students, we're very engrossed in talking about the world around us and culture. I love talking about how Jesus flipped things on its head. So I'm very excited to see the direction that you go with the series as a whole, looking at the book of Mark, which are a lot of his stories and awesome things. So it's going to be awesome to just look at how different he lived.
It is going to be. Yeah, I love all the different, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are all takes on Jesus' life. The four Gospels, they all tell the same story, but we're going to hear it from Mark's point of view. Yeah. And it's pretty going to be good.
It's awesome.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
We've kind of touched on some of these things before, but let's get to our landing section of the episode. Maybe people skip right to this every week. I hope not, but maybe they do. So. But what are some applicable takeaways from this conversation of personality types of all kinds, where our identity comes from, still kind of wrapping up the conversation of how we treat other people. What's some real things that somebody listening could take away from this?
Yeah, I do think it's a good way to transition between our two series because, again, people matter to God more than anything else. And so why would we take a personality test? Because we love people, not because we love ourselves. I think that's the big thing is like, I just want to get more into me. If that's all you want to do, your motivation's kind of misplaced. It's not really about you. It's about you being able to love people better. And I think if you do personality tests because you want to love people better, you want to work in a more harmonious environment with your coworkers, you want to have a better family, that's a great reason to do it. And we're not here promoting, like we said, this is the one we're talking about because it is the most popular one right now. But I think, first of all, motivation is one of the key things we want to land on here. What is your motivation for talking about it, for doing it? If your motivation's right, by all means, let's do this. Let's talk about this. Have fun with it.
I think if, taking a test like this reveals, like you said at one point in this conversation, reveals obstacles that are in your way from loving other people better or serving other people better, reveals those things in your heart that you need to work on, then why not take this test and reveal those things? Why not?
When you and I were discussing ours the other day, like it makes me more understanding of you. It makes me have a little bit more compassion or more empathy when you might be doing something. I'm like, why is he? Oh, that's kind of, okay, I get it. I understand you better. And you, me as well. And I think with all of us, and sometimes that's why Jared and I butt heads because we're the same sometimes about things. We're very strong-willed. Yeah. But then sometimes that's why we get along so well because we both see things the same way too. So when we're on the same page, so it's just kind of like, it's helpful in that. And I think so. Motivation is important. If you're motivated to do it because you want to love people better and treat people better, then awesome.
Jesus spoke about the heart all the time, about motivations and why we do things, right?
So so I think it's a great thing there. I think like we've both hit on multiple times today is be motivated for the right reason and don't be extreme. Don't be extreme. Bible matters more than Enneagram. Jesus.
I would love to see us be extreme about the Bible, be extreme about the Word of God, us be extreme about those things before we get extreme about the Enneagram, about sports, about any of the things that we could talk about that we enjoy. I would love to see us get really serious and extreme about the things that matter before anything else.
That's right. So that's all. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Any other closing thoughts on the Enneagram personality types?
No.
Any of that?
I think we're done.
Yeah, we're done. And we're done. We're just calling it quits. But anyway, thanks so much for listening. Check back next week for a brand new episode. Man, we are 8 episodes in. I don't want to say that wrong. This is 8 episodes into this season. So we have some exciting guests, and you're gone next week. So
supposedly,
stay tuned to what happens there.
The next 2 weeks we'll have we have some guests planned.
So it's exciting stuff. So as always, agree, disagree, send us your thoughts, send us your comments, send us your questions, send us topic ideas. I had 2 people pull me aside at church yesterday and give me ideas for future conversations. So I love that. We want to make this, I know we say it all the time, we want to make this something that you want to listen to, that you're curious about, that pushes you. So send us any ideas you have to podcast@sycamorecreek.org, message us on any social media platform, or pull us aside on a Sunday morning and tell us your ideas. We'd love to just keep making this better and better. So that's it. That's all we have. Have a fantastic week. Remember to see God in all things because he works in all things for the good of those who love him. Peace out. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the In All Things podcast. Our challenge for you today is to send this episode to one person. Seriously, think of somebody right now that could use this conversation and send it to them. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic ideas, please send them to podcast@sycamorecreek.org, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sycamore Creek Church so that you can always see what's going on in our world. If this conversation helped you at all, make sure you share it, leave a review, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on a single episode. We love you, God loves you, and we'll see you next week on the In All Things podcast.